Hi, I'm Scott Wrighton. I'm Decatur's city manager, and in that role I have the opportunity and the pleasure to bring you these weekly updates about what's going on in your city government. Last Monday, the mayor and city council conducted what they call a study session. It's something that they do every other month or so. It's not a regular meeting where we discharge the normal business of city government. It's sort of a meeting where they can roll up their sleeves figuratively and do more of a deep dive into specific topics and give staff feedback. Oftentimes it's on matters that staff isn't quite sure what kind of a policy direction the city council wants to go, and we need their informal feedback and general direction about policy so we can prepare things that can be ready for formal adoption at a later time. The topic that this particular study session was about is neighborhood revitalization, dealing with some of the distressed neighborhoods that we all know and see in the urban core of the city. This has been a priority of the mayor and city council for some time, and the best way to explain the strategy that they're trying to use moving forward is that all of the many different initiatives, different strategies, different policies sort of fall under four categories, and I call it the four legs of a stool. The first leg is demolition. Clearly, there are properties in our community and in certain neighborhoods that are simply too far gone. They've been let go, they haven't been maintained. There's windows that have been open for years, or the roofs have collapsed and the weather has done its damage, and there is no way to rehabilitate these buildings anymore, and they simply have to be demolished in order to keep them from creating a drag on the surrounding community and on the surrounding neighborhood. So demolish what has to be demolished is the first leg of the stool. The second is code enforcement. The city council, I believe, is moving towards, hasn't made any adoption of any specific ordinance changes yet, but is moving towards a much more aggressive and vigorous approach to code enforcement, because if we don't enforce the codes more actively, more proactively, then properties will deteriorate, and properties that can be rehabilitated will end up being on the demolition list. So code enforcement that will take the form of probably some inspections of certain properties, an ordinance dealing with how we dispose of or how we monitor vacant and foreclosed properties and other sorts of chronic nuisances. The third leg of the stool is rehabilitation. We want to keep as many properties as possible from falling onto that demolition list, and one of the ways best to do that is with rehabilitation, especially in the current market, because right now building materials are such that building new construction to provide affordable housing, it's not affordable. The final cost exceeds what the current fair market values in the Decatur market would endure. So the best way to provide affordable housing and make sure that it truly is affordable is to rehabilitate existing structures. The City Council gave the green light to about 8 specific policy initiatives to try to do that. The first is a program we call the Owner-Occupied Rehab Program. This is where someone who lives in the home and owns the home wants to rehab it, but maybe doesn't have the resources to do it. So we give them a forgivable loan to rehab the house up to $40,000 or some other amount of money. And if they do the work in accordance with the codes and they live there for 5 years, then we will forgive the loan. The second policy program that the City Council gave the green light to was what we call Investment in Personal Capital Program. This is an attempt to try to make more people able to get loans when they need them and improve their credit score so that they can be eligible. Because no matter how much money we make available for rehab, if people can't get access to financing for their projects, then that's going to continue to be a great impediment. But to be a responsible property owner, it's also important that people have good counseling about how to be a homeowner. Just because you own a home doesn't mean you know how to be a homeowner. We've discovered that some people just need additional help, counseling, guidance on how to be a homeowner, and so we're going to be initiating that program with the Lincoln Land Credit Union and with the Community Investment Corporation of Decatur. The fourth initiative is what's called a small repair program, and we're going to be partnering with the Northeast Community Fund. Oftentimes you don't need an entire rehab of a building to occur. Maybe you just need to replace the gutters or some new windows or something that's a minor item, might be something that is causing a code violation. And so we just need a revolving fund for small repairs like that to keep a property from slipping into a code enforcement problem. Another category of dealing with rehab is a property that is rehabable, it can be saved, but it's been abandoned. either there's nobody there or the property owner has completely walked away from it. So in a partnership we developed with the Central Illinois Land Bank Authority, we're going to have a abandonment to rehab program where we partner with these 501c3s to rehab a home and then sell it. The fourth leg of the stool in neighborhood revitalization is what we call catalyst projects and placemaking. It is simply not practical or reasonable to think that the city of Decatur can touch every single abandoned house, every single house or structure that needs rehabilitation. It's not practical, and it's not even necessary, because if we're rehabbing enough, if we have a couple of catalyst projects that really change the face of a particular neighborhood, then the private sector will always step up and take on adjoining rehab projects on their own, because when we change the math in that neighborhood, then it becomes possible for them to have a return on their investment. The Johns Hill project was one of those catalyst projects, and we are negotiating now with the Illinois Housing Development Authority and the Decatur Public Schools to do a similar project on the 9.5 acres currently owned by the Decatur Public Schools, the old Garfield School site at the corner of Oakland and West Grand Street. That'll be our next catalyst project, where it'll be mixed use. We'll start by rehabilitating the old school, and then work with the developer to have other mixed uses on the vacant land that's also a part of that school site. Finally, the last recommendation that the City Council gave the green light to at its study session is to look at certain streets that are in our urban core area with a concept that actually originally comes out of the United States Department of Transportation called the Great Streets Initiative, where we look holistically at the entire corridor, not just the right-of-way, but also the properties that adjoin it. And we're going to be starting that first with Jasper Street, not just Jasper Street on the south, but all the way from Lakeshore Drive all the way to where Jasper Street ends at the junction with Pershing Street. And along that corridor are several distressed neighborhoods and several places where the right-of-way needs to be improved, or where some investment in the private property that adjoins it would add significantly, not just to improving that corridor, but also improving what we call placemaking. One of the ways that private property owners can assist the city and its partners with the neighborhood revitalization program is with a recent program that the city started and adopted a couple of meetings ago. We call it the tree program, and it's where you can have city participation in the cost to install a tree in your front yard, that portion of the yard that adjoins the city street, and the city will pay for an installation of up to 80% of the cost, up to $400 to install a tree on your property, as long as you'll take responsibility subsequently for watering and maintaining it. That not only adds to the value of the private property, it also adds to the general appearance of the streetscape, which is why the city is engaged in that. Finally, I want to mention some things that have been in the news over the last year about job creation. Certainly, economic revitalization at the neighborhood level or economic or the commercial industrial level doesn't happen unless we're continuing to work as we are to bring new jobs to Decatur. In the current international and national environment, industries are encouraged more and more to return to domestic sites. Both the previous and the current presidential administration favored that, and probably deteriorating relationships with China mean that more industries are wanting to maybe have the security of being back in the United States. Well, I see Decatur as being able to benefit from that more rapidly than a lot of other communities because we have the industrial infrastructure to support those relocations and those expansions. In fact, we've already seen that here in Decatur. The Cardinal Warehouse being constructed up at the corner of Brush College and Garver Church Road. The FedEx warehouse being constructed at the corner of Mound Road and Brush College. The announcement last year of InnovaFeed building a $50 million facility adjacent to ADM, also up on Brush College Road. It'll bring about 250 new jobs to Decatur. And the announcement this week of a $300 million investment by ADM in their protein manufacturing business. And later this year, Mueller will finish their new foundry being built up on North Jasper Street, which, as they add additional phases, will have the capacity and the potential to double Mueller's employment in Decatur. These aren't happening by an accident or just random chance. It's because the The City of Decatur and the Economic Development Corporation and our other partners are working to pursue these business opportunities, and because Decatur has understood from generations ago that it's best suited to host these sorts of industrial, manufacturing, and assembly businesses, and we have retained the infrastructure in order to do that. So that's my update this week. I look forward to bringing you some additional information about other policy topics next week. Thanks for tuning in.